Good evening, everybody. Welcome. It's good to see everyone. This is the Parks and Community Services Commission meeting of October 13th, 2022. Call the meeting to order at 6 o'clock p.m., if that's right, Ms. Fatua. The first item on the agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. Ms. Michelle Murphy, would you be so kind to lead us? Thank you, Commissioner Murphy. Next item is roll call, so we'll turn it over to you, Ms. Fatua.
I would like to notate that Vice Chair Dorn Parker will not be attending today. Commissioner Ashendorf. Present. Commissioner Andrade Vallarta. Present. Commissioner Brown.
Present.
Commissioner Glapp.
Here.
Commissioner Murphy. Here. Chair Rutherford.
Present.
We have quorum. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Fatua. And yes, unfortunately, Vice Chair Dorn Parker cannot join us this evening due to prearranged travel, but we will see her again soon, no doubt. Next item on the agenda is public comment for matters not on our agenda. Comments are limited to 3 minutes per speaker. And I see we have Mr. Tabota joining us. Thank you for coming down, Ralph. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair and Commissioners. My name is Ralph Tabota, a longtime resident of Costa Mesa. Got some comments and I guess interspersed with some questions. I wanted to speak about the, recent award from the state of the $10 million for parks and the $1 million for Ketchum-Leibold Park specifically. And thanks to State Senator Dave Min and Assemblywoman Connie Petrie-Norris for those, for that funding. And maybe you've already discussed that. I went to look at minutes from prior meetings, but unfortunately the last minutes I saw posted were from February of 2022. So again, maybe you've been discussing this, but I also watched last month's meeting on Zoom, and I know that I guess this month was going to be the report out open space, which I guess has got deferred. But I think open space, parks, and certainly the funding are all linked. And so not knowing exactly if the commission has been involved yet in that discussions on the $10 million in particular, I really urge the commission to get squarely involved in the decision-making process. That $10 million, I mean, that's like a once-in-a-lifetime, maybe, opportunity. And I think it's really important that that money be spent or allocated very wisely. And I see this commission being appointed by the council who represent the people, so indirectly you represent the people, and the people definitely have to have a voice in how that money is allocated. So I know you'll be working with staff on this, but I want to see the commission driving the bus on this and making the decisions, the ultimate recommendations that will flow up to City Council, because I'm sure City Council will make the final decision on that. But your voice, your recommendations will be super important on that. You know, are there going to be public meetings? What's the process going to be? I think it would be important to have public meetings on this to get public feedback. You know, is some of that money going to be allocated towards land acquisition and subsequent building a new park? How much would be used for upgrading existing parks? Are there some areas in the city that need more parks, let's say park deserts, than other parts? That, you know, these are all things that need to be reviewed, and I'm sure you're looking at this or will be looking at this, but to me, it's just really important. This is just a great opportunity. I mean, $10 billion doesn't come around every day, and we got to make the most of it and make wise decisions on that. With that, please update the minutes. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Tabota. Appreciate your comments. Ms. Fatua, Are there any members of the public on Zoom that wish to make a public comment?
If there are any members of the public via Zoom who wish to speak, please raise your hand. Chair, I see no hands raised.
Thank you, Ms. Fatua. At this time, we will close public comment for matters not listed on the agenda. I do just want to take a moment to follow up on a point that Mr. Tabota raised. Thank you for that. My understanding is part of the funding is prescribed, but there's some flexibility on the part of staff. Director Minter did give an update at a previous meeting, so Director Minter, if you don't mind, I will turn over the floor to you if you could provide a quick report out on the status of those funds.
Sure. Thank you, Chair. The Commission's involvement in the capital improvement process typically comes when Public Works, who oversees the 5-year CIP, bring an item before the Commission, usually in April or May, during a part of the budget process. So all of the projects that were included in the CIP are the ones that were submitted to this state before Senator Min for his review. So there was a multitude of projects that were submitted, roughly about $27 million worth of projects that included both parks and active transportation projects, all of which were included in the CIP. So Senator Min's office was responsible for going through the projects that were submitted and presented by staff, and they had selected the projects that they wanted the funding to go to. So we, by no means, were trying to keep it out of the Commission. It was basically projects that were already approved in the CIP. And moving forward, we are trying to finalize, with Senator Min's office through an application process, the exact extent of each of the projects that his office approved. So there is a progress, kind of an assignment process underway. The city manager's office is taking the lead on that. We mentioned it briefly at the Fairview Park Steering Committee last night with them as well. Like Mr. Tabota said, it's fantastic to have $10 million come around. However, when the giver of the money identifies what he wants the projects to be spent on, and they are already projects that were approved by the city council in the CIP, there won't be a lot of flexibility as to what we spend that money on.
Sure, and I appreciate that. But just to clarify, anything the money is spent on that goes through the CIP process, those all go through the regular public hearing process and public review process?
Correct.
Thank you. So thank you, Mr. Tabota. I think there will be ample opportunities for public input, and certainly staff will make those opportunities available. Sure. In commissioner comments, how about that? So let's start commissioner comments now. I'm sorry for interrupting the flow, but yes, it is time for commissioner comments, and I know Commissioner Brown has some excellent comments to share. We're going to start commissioner comments with Commissioner Ashendorf. I did want to just take a moment to say thank you, Commissioner Ashendorf. For those that don't know, this is her last meeting with our commission, and so we have greatly appreciated her service to our city and this commission. Of course, you're not going far. Congrats on your appointment to the Arts Commission. I know you'll bring a lot of wonderful insight there. So without further ado, I'll turn over the floor to Commissioner Charlene Ashendorf.
Thank you, Chair. First, my comments, and then I have a 5-page poem that I've made for this evening. No, I'll save the poem for another time. Okay. I hope all of you have had the opportunity to visit ACMA. It was grander than any of us could have ever imagined. And Commissioner Andrade Villarta picked me out of a crowd of 10,000 on Saturday night. So it's free for the next 10 years. Please, everyone, go and support the arts at ACMA. Also, hope to see you all at Lions Park and dress up as a scarecrow or anything else you'd like to do for Saturday's big annual event. Really excited that the city has hired a new outreach worker for the senior center. Lucy Tang started last week. She filled the shoes of Sharu Moody, who was with our city for almost 20-some years. And so that outreach worker is integral to the support at the senior center. And a couple other things. The seniors were so excited to ride on the new electric shuttle to Angel Stadium. That was the big talk the other day. It's like they got a backseat tour, backyard tour of Angel Stadium, but on this new bus. And finally, there also is a lot of buzz at the Senior Center because the LEAPS program is coming back on Halloween after a hiatus of 2 years, and the little kidlets are going to be all dressed up in their costumes, knocking on doors. Volunteers will be behind the doors, and they will be passing out treats to the children. So lots of good things in our community this fall. If I might, I just wanted to say a few words. First of all, what I've learned in the last almost 4 years on this commission is that we are the best when we serve others. That's really what this has been about. 4 years on this commission, I served with 14 commissioners in that time. That sounds pretty amazing. But in this group, most of us met for the first time on Zoom. And that was a daunting task. You know, how could we best serve the community in that kind of environment? How could we really make a difference and engage our residents when we couldn't really be right next to them? But we had people like the sage, Mr. Setharaman, who always was there along the path. And then we had the master of maintenance and trees, Mr. Ryan, always guiding us and protecting us from above. And Miss Villasenor, you're not getting away tonight easy either. You and a lot of your new staff really brought creative energy and came up with ways to engage people online with online programming and ensure that our seniors wouldn't be isolated during this period of time. And that meant so much to so many people. And this PAX committee celebrated a pocket park and Jordan Park and pickleball. Hallelujah, we have a pickleball. And now to all of you, as I move to another time zone, if you will, you will be part of the master plan process. You will see upgrades in on our tennis camp and our tennis courts, maybe some butterflies in a park. And I know that you will also be there to ensure that the Norma Herzog Center will be thriving and open to the public again. So thank you to the residents, whether it's dogs or leashes or new programs. We've had a lot of community support over the last 4 years. Serving on the Parks Commission really ignited my hopeful spirit for this community. And I'll continue to visit the parks on foot, on my e-bike, or in my 31-year-old Mazda Miata. And so we all arrived as commissioners, but tonight we leave as friends. And finally, I learned how to trust a man who wore Nikes, okay? Who dresses in Nikes. I learned to respect this man who always answered our questions, who allowed commissioners to bother him basically anytime, day or night, staff and residents. Thank you, Jason, for helping each of us grow into being better servants for our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Ashendorf. We're going to miss you. But you're not going to be far. I'm sure you'll join us from time to time. Yes. Next, in no particular order, Commissioner Glab, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Well, I just wanted to thank you for Commissioner Ashendorf for all your effort and leadership in the city and being friendly and warm with me. And I'm going to miss sitting next to you. I appreciate you. And you're a real servant leader to this city, and you really love the city of Costa Mesa. You can see that in all your efforts and the work you do here. So I thank you for everything.
Commissioner.
Thank you, Commissioner Glab. Commissioner Murphy, you are up next.
Well, I would just echo all the nice things that were just said about you, Commissioner Ashendorf. Yes, thank you for everything you've done for this city and for this community. You are obviously someone that we all look up to and hope to be like when we grow up one day. So, so thank you for that. And it's been a pleasure getting to work with you and getting to know you. I do think you are so amazing and so special. So can't wait to see what you do with the arts now. I would love some butterflies and whatever, anywhere. And then I just have, it's been sort of quietish on my parks front, except for I had already sent a note over to Jason regarding T-Winkle, where the baseball and softball fields are, that the balls kind of fly over the fences and hit unsuspecting folks if they're not paying attention. And so Jason graciously said that the staff already went over and took a look at it. So I was just hoping if you had any other updates on that, that would be great. If there was a way to take a look at keeping those balls from hitting folks. And that's it. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Commissioner Murphy. And then Commissioner Brown, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Commissioner Ashendorf, I just want to echo what everyone has said. You're the first person that I met when I joined this commission. More interested in the arts I was than the parks, but I've come to see how important the parks are, and I really do look forward to seeing what you do with your, kind of powerful presence in terms of generating enthusiasm on the Arts Commission. I think Costa Mesa is a really special place for a lot of reasons. I thought so for arts. I definitely think so for parks, and so I think that working together, we can do some really great things for the city and have the city stand out even more. I actually want to turn, though, to what Mr. Tabota raised around the funding from Senator Min's office. And as your liaison to Fairview Park Committee, we did talk, this issue came up last night. And so one of the committee members asked if they could have access to the document around what the funding priorities were. And so Director Minter, at the time, you had said that that would be a possibility for the Fairview Park Committee. So if that's the case, I think it would be helpful for this commission to see that as well, and actually for it to be made public, because I know that there are a lot of questions around it, and it would be great to have I recognize that no decisions have been made, but as part of a general commitment from the City Council to make things more public and publicly engaged, I think having that information out would be an important first step. I also want to talk a little bit about what feels like the season of the master plan. And so I know that Director Minter in his report will talk about that for Fairview Park. But I was surprised to see that it's not on, an update isn't on our agenda today. And I know that from what I understand from an email that I received from Director Minter, that the open space master plan is still in development. But it would be really great just to get an update on the update. To find out where we're at. I know I had wondered and had a conversation with Director Minter around whether the master plan will be in Spanish. I'm just thinking about issues of accessibility and our community in Costa Mesa, so that's something that I'm interested in. Certainly it's easier for me to go into Spanish-speaking communities and ask for their input when we have a document in Spanish. And then I guess the last thing is more of a question, but I'm wondering if we have a resource that identifies which city parks do not have drinking fountains. And this issue came to me from Councilmember Reynolds, who brought it to my attention that not all parks have drinking fountains. And, as we are going through incredibly hotter, longer summers, that seems important to have for children, for families visiting the park. So I'd be curious to know if that resource exists, and if not, I'll definitely go out and do a survey of the parks in my district to find out which ones don't have drinking fountains. And then I guess the follow-up question would be, are there plans to make sure that those parks without drinking fountains will receive drinking fountains? And if so, what that looks like. I think that's it. Thank you. Oh, actually, one last question I noticed on our agenda, I'll raise this later, is around our next meeting date.
Are you sure? Thank you, Commissioner Brown. Excellent comments. Appreciate you raising those points. And next, we'll go to District 4, Commissioner Andrade Vallarta.
Yes, thank you so much. So the first one is, again, thank you so much, Charlene, for all your leadership and welcoming to the commission. It really was I learned so much watching you lead this team. So I appreciate all the time and effort that you've dedicated here, and excited to see what you're doing next in the arts. So I've been got some outreach from some residents on the west side for a little support, a little maintenance over in Canyon Park, specifically the BMX trails that are back there. Is it called? I think it's called Sheep Hills. That would be great. I know that great to have some park ranger support. It looks like, obviously, with such a high number of houseless neighbors, they do frequent the area, and it does require some additional maybe garbage cans. Looks like, the kids go out there and spend a good chunk of their time there, and garbage cans are always overflowing. And also some support maybe from park rangers to maybe outline, what kind of equipment can be rode there, because it is a BMX space, as I understand it. E-bikes don't basically destroy the path that has been built by all the community volunteers. So just a little support and maybe attention to that back area. I'm not sure if it falls into county lines or city lines. Would love some clarity around that. And then secondly, in the interim of our previous meeting, I had the great opportunity, so I wanted to just say thank you to Monique and Jason for joining me in a conversation with our Newport Mesa School District enrichment staff to really help and find ways to collaborate. It sounds like we all are creating great opportunities for our kids and our residents here, but we're all going after the same population. So it was really great to have you, to be part of that opportunity for you to both to connect and find ways to align to better serve the same population and community that we're looking to support. So yeah, and then finally, also I appreciate, Director, your notes on the time and the detail and the effort that you and your team are taking in this open space plan. I know it's quite an undertaking. So I really appreciate your update and letting us know that you're taking in all the feedback and any opportunity where updates are needed. So we appreciate that attention to detail, because as we hear, the community is ready for it. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Yeah, I just want to take a moment to also echo all that was said, Commissioner Ashendorf. I really am so grateful for all you've done for the commission, your friendship, your guidance, your mentorship. You've certainly been a mentor to all of us in more ways than you might realize. So I want to express my gratitude for that. And I'm sure there'll be more opportunities to express my gratitude as well. So thank you again, Charlene. Some comments have been previously made about the Norma Herzog Community Center. We received, I know community organizations around the city have received the beautiful new brochure about the Norma Herzog Community Center. So I did want to give kudos to staff for sending that out, but it's a nice rental brochure with rental options for the facility. So I hope that community members will take advantage of that. It's been a long time coming, and it's wonderful to see that now offered to the community. To also second Commissioner Brown's comments, I know a lot of us were expecting to have a discussion about the open space master plan. And while I do want to respect the process, and I know we have a deep reservoir of expertise on staff that it's important to tap into, just because something's perfect, it doesn't mean we have to wait. It's always okay to take more public input than less public input. So I would encourage staff to keep that in mind. So I'll be excited for us to review that at our next meeting. And then there's been a couple of awesome events that happened recently, as Commissioner Ashendorf alluded to. The opening of Auckland, Costa Mesa is really historic. Over 10,000 people coming on opening day is more than just an event. It's an economic driver for the city. So that's really exciting that that's come to Costa Mesa. So if you haven't visited, please visit. Art Venture was also wonderful. I think we haven't met since Art Venture. So it's been a lot of dog years. So that was really wonderful. And then Monique was recently in the Daily Pilot. I hope everybody checks that out and comes to the upcoming Scarecrow Festival. But you'll have to read the Daily Pilot to get more information about that. And then lastly, you might have heard there's an election going on right now. It is so important to vote in the election, and it's easy to vote. There's really no excuse. A ballot was mailed to you. It should have arrived this week. So I don't want us to get too distracted by that, but I do want to remind everybody it is so important to vote. Sign the ballot, mail it in, and make your voice heard. So thank you. And with that, we'll close commissioner comments and move on to old business, which is the minutes from the previous meeting on September 8th. Are there any public comments on the minutes?
If there are any members via Zoom, please raise your hand. Chair, I see no hands raised.
Awesome. There's a motion on the floor by, thank you, we'll close public comments. Sorry, there's a motion on the floor by Commissioner Ashendorf. I'll second the motion and we'll call the question for the minutes.
Chair Rutherford, if you can place the second on the screen.
Thank you.
All right, if everyone can vote on their screen. Motion carries 6-0 to approve the minutes.
Thank you, Ms. Fatua. Next is new business. There's one item of new business on our agenda, which is a tree removal request at 1960 Swan Drive. Mr. Ryan, we will turn the floor over to you.
Thank you, Chair Rutherford. Commissioners, the next item before you is a request for removal of 3 city trees located within the public right-of-way on the Gannet Drive side of 1960 Swan Drive. Maintenance Services was contacted by the applicant most recently on March 27th in 2022. The applicant reported that the trees were producing an excessive amount of pine needle and flower drop, which was falling into the applicant's pool, causing issues with the filtration system and other maintenance issues around the yard. The applicant also cited concerns regarding issues with the sidewalk adjacent to the trees and alleged that the roots had damaged a drain pipe that led from the backyard pool into the adjacent street through the gutter. This is a front picture of the home. You can see the pine trees on kind of the right side of that photo on the Gannet Drive side. As a part of the review process, there's a few work orders that were discovered that are associated with these trees, and those are included in your packet as attachment 2. The first was from August of 2012. Maintenance received a report of some sidewalk issues. Staff installed one asphalt ramp that addressed a dip in the sidewalk there. March of 2015, maintenance received a request to remove one of the pine trees. Staff met with the requestor, and it was decided that at that time the trees would be trimmed rather than removed. In May of 2018, maintenance received a request to trim the trees, and the trimming was completed that following month. Also in July of 2020, the sidewalk at the corner of Swan Drive and Gannet Drive was replaced. It looks like most of that project was away from the trees and associated just at the corner to install an ADA ramp. There's also some curb and gutter work that was performed, which may have been in association with that project, but that was evident as well upon inspection. Then in March of 2021, maintenance received a request to remove a single pine tree, the one that was located closest to the pool. I think staff reported back that there was no No justifiable reason for removal, and there's no contact that was noted between March of 2021 and March of 2022. The city arborist inspected the trees, like I mentioned, found no justification for removal at the staff level. The applicant was notified of the findings and requested that the trees be presented to the Parks Commission for consideration as a Category 3 discretionary removal. The trees in question are between 40 to 60 feet in height. They were found to be healthy and in good condition. They were last trimmed on June 5th, 2018. The total value of these trees is estimated to be a little over $23,000 for the three. This is just a Google map image. It looks like it was sometime after the trimming in 2018, possibly. It was October of 2015. It was October 2015. The amount of pine needle drop beneath the trees at the time of inspection, the surrounding area appeared to be normal for these types of trees. There's no obvious signs of sap on the sidewalk or the asphalt at the time of inspection. These photos here were taken in April of this year. These photos were taken, I believe, yesterday. And you have the following photos that the applicant did provide in her request. And you see the photo on the left has some pine needles scattered on it looks like the hardscape around the pool. And the photo on the right appears to be flowers from the pine trees that are floating in the pool. A couple additional photos of some full trash cans of pine needles. Don't have a lot of context with the photos or the timing of the photos. I think I've mentioned this in the past with pine trees, the shedding of the pine needles can be greater during certain times of the year. Weather conditions such as wind contribute to a greater amount of needles falling all at once. The pine needle drop is a natural occurrence for pine trees. It's part of their natural growth process. They shed old needles and produce new needles. They also produce flowers, drop pine cones, and can drip sap. All of these are natural occurrences for this type of tree. It's obvious that the root system from these trees have caused some movement in the asphalt and on the sidewalk. It's interesting, the sidewalk in that area appears to slant towards the residence direction, and I'm not sure what that is, but it seems to be even where there's no trees, there's some type of natural slant towards the residence, but in some areas the trees are contributing to some lifts there in the area. You can see the curb and gutter on the picture on the left has been replaced recently. I believe that circular hole in the picture on the left is the drain pipe that the applicant was referring to that was damaged. And then you can see some asphalt damage that's fairly minimal. We can address with some maintenance practices there. But again, the gutter in that section looked like it had been replaced at some point. Several areas in the sidewalk along Gannet Drive have been ground in order to eliminate any tripping hazards. For the most part, those grinds are holding now. I think some areas closest to the turf park side could use a little touch-up work as those are slightly elevated. So we'd have staff come back and regrind some of that area. In addition, there's near the first tree that's closest to Swan Drive, looks like there's 2 to 3 panels there. I'd probably recommend if the trees are to remain that either maintenance staff or we have a contractor come in, remove those panels, maybe perform some root shaving or some strategic root removal and re-pour that section. In conclusion, the city-owned trees that are being requested for removal are located in the public right-of-way. The trees are in good condition. They've been maintained on a regular schedule. Sidewalk issues are manageable through standard maintenance practices. They're not currently causing a significant exposure to liability to the city. The trees do not appear to be dropping an unusual amount of pine needles or other debris for this type of tree. Therefore, it's recommended that the commission deny the request to remove these trees. That concludes my presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Ryan, for that excellent and thorough presentation. Are there any commissioner questions? Commissioner Glab.
Yes, Mr. Ryan, when the arborist comes out to check the tree, do they only check the health of the tree and and not the impact that the tree is making on the resident. I'm just trying to figure out if they just only look at just the health of the tree and not necessarily the debris that it's dropping and the impact it's making on the resident.
So when the arborist goes out to inspect the tree, he does look at the health of the tree primarily and then looks at the impacts, the potential impacts for the resident. That is a consideration. We try to ascertain as to whether the tree is dropping an unusual amount of leaf litter or debris. That would be an indication that there may be some health issues with the tree. So that is one thing that we do look at as far as the impacts on the resident.
How is that evaluated, or is there some kind of rubric to kind of figure out the impact it's making on the resident? Or is it just kind of subjective?
I would say it's rather subjective. When we look at any tree that's in the public right-of-way, we try to measure the benefit of the tree to the community and to the environment versus the maintenance impacts that the resident may have. So there may be a little bit of I think you mentioned just like some guesswork and try to ascertain.
Okay.
And keep in mind that when the arborist is going out there, we're seeing it at one time. Obviously, the resident lives there and they're responsible for maintaining the tree on a regular basis. And that's kind of why I try to emphasize, just because we're not seeing issues doesn't mean that there's not maintenance aspects to that tree.
All right. And then it says that she had some work done, blocked broke drain at the curb, and she had it repaired. Was that caused by the tree? That repair?
Unfortunately, I can't answer that.
Okay.
I don't have any photos of what happened. I'm not aware of what happened other than the fact that the drain had to be replaced or repaired.
And so is that her responsibility to repair that, or if she would have contacted you, would the city come out and taken a look at that?
As to the responsibility, if at the time that she replaced the drain and documented what happened and took photos, that would go through, that she could file a claim with the city.
Okay.
And being reimbursed for those repairs if it was discovered that the tree did in fact cause the damage to the line.
Okay. But it's too late now, since it was January 2019 to file a claim.
I would assume so. I'm not an expert on the claim process, but I would think that would exceed the time frame, yes.
I did hear from her today, and she did say that the drain was broken again. So it's going to need to be repaired. Is that something you guys could go out and take a look at and send your maintenance guys out to see what's going on before we make a decision?
In order to ascertain what's causing it, it'd have to be dug up. My recommendation to the resident or the applicant would be to dig up the drain, hire someone to go through that process, either take photos or contact a city arborist, and we'd arrange for the city arborist to go down there and take photos and witness the exposed issues and see exactly what is going on, and then subsequently file a claim with the city if it is in fact suspected the tree roots are causing
So then
damage.
she has to take care of all that stuff, even though it's kind of like on the curb there? She's still responsible for that drain and the curb?
Yes, yes, the resident installed the drain. Typically, there's some permitting processes that are associated with installation of a drain of that matter when you're interfacing with the curb face and coring through the curb face. I'm not sure if those permits were pulled, but usually there's some information along with those permits that kind of identify maintenance and who's responsible.
Okay. And she requested to remove all 3 trees?
My understanding from the notes and speaking with the arborist, that at first she had requested the removal of 1 tree, and then wanted to move forward with requesting removal of all 3 trees.
Okay. I think that's it for my questions. Okay. That's it.
Thank you, Commissioner Glab. Any other commissioner questions? Commissioner Brown, go ahead.
I would be curious to hear your thoughts on the part of the letter where she talked about the excessive algae. In terms of, her pool man was talking to her that he thinks the excessive algae in the pool is caused by the filter and skimmer being clogged. And so I'm curious to know what you think of that.
So if the pine needles are causing the filter to be clogged and the skimmer's not cleaned out on a regular basis, That would cause issues with the pool filter. And I own a pool, but I'm no pool expert. But having had filter issues, could lead to algae.
So one proposal, I find this to be, this particular one, I'm just thinking about the quality of life in Costa Mesa, and you have a home and you have a pool that you want to use. And so one thing I'm wondering is, if there's a possibility to remove just one tree, or could we talk about removing just one tree, the one that's by the pool, to hopefully solve this issue for the homeowner? That's something that's on my mind anyways.
The one concern I would have, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
The one concern I would have with removing one tree is that there's no guarantee that the other 2 pine trees would not be contributing to that. Plus, there's a 4th pine tree that's across the street. Behind my home, I mentioned I have a pool. There's about 8 pine trees. It's across a 4-lane road. And I still wind up with some pine needles in my pool. So that'd be my one concern. As a commission, that is absolutely an option that you can entertain for sure.
Thank you, Mr. Ryan and Commissioner Brown. Any other?
Yeah, I had a.
Oh, go.
In the kind of your line of work, is there kind of, I've seen sort of nettings that kind of to protect that kind, whatever droppings are in certain parks. Is there something like that that could be set up so that the stuff that's naturally falling off the tree or maybe getting blown by the wind, that way it prevents it from landing in our pool?
Commissioner, I'm not familiar with the nettings. I would imagine that something like that would work on a different type of tree. I would imagine that for the most part, the pine needles would probably still get through any type of netting. I don't have any experience with that, just be what I would imagine.
I concur with Commissioner Brown. When I spoke with her, she felt that her livelihood was kind of being taken away and not being able to entertain her grandkids because of all the debris that's falling from the tree. I had one other question. What happens to a tree when it is removed? How is it repurposed? What do we do with trees when we remove them?
So the city's tree maintenance contractor removes the trees. If there is wood that can be repurposed, they actually have a very robust repurposing program. They create furniture. The city offices, I think, receive some furniture on an annual basis, kind of as a Christmas presentation. And they actually, I believe, work with, I can't remember if it's Fender or Gibson guitar, where some of the trees they remove, they actually repurpose for guitars.
Okay. Thank you.
Great questions. Seeing no commissioner questions, let's open this up for public comment. If there's any members of the public that wish to make a comment on this item, now is the time. Ms. Fatua, are there any members of the public over Zoom that would like to make a comment?
If there are any members of the public, can you please raise your hand via Zoom? I see Sue Tarvin. One moment. Sue Tarvin, you may now unmute.
Yeah, hi. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. What's sticking in my mind is the comment that the tree is not making any unusual droppings. Well, just the usual droppings is more than what's causing my problem. Usual droppings from that tree. It's right over my pool. There's my yard is never clean. And I just would really like to have the one tree removed. I've only wanted the one tree. And then my neighbors were talking about, oh no, if you're putting in a request, have all the trees removed. Well, I love trees. It breaks my heart to think we'd remove 3 trees, but the one tree, I would really appreciate having that removed because of the trouble it causes me. My gardeners can't handle it, and my yard is never clean. My pool is never cleaned, and I dread the next storm coming. it's more than my gardeners can handle. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Tarvin, for your comments and sharing your concerns with us this evening. Ms. Fatou, are there any members of the public, any other members of the public?
Chair, I see no other hands raised.
Awesome. At this time, we'll close public comment and move it back to the commission. If there's any other commissioner comments, I just wanted to briefly share, Mr. Ryan, I know you've said this before, but I think it bears repeating, that most tree removal requests don't end up coming before the commission. If a tree removal request meets the requirement for health and safety removal and poses a risk to health and safety, that can be done as a discretionary removal. But this did not meet, obviously did not meet that criteria. I'm familiar with pine trees, have lived around them my whole life in Southern California, as I'm sure all of you are very familiar with pine trees and their droppings. So unfortunately, there is an element of this where it's just part of living by a pine tree. And while I do support the city, and it sounds like the city has gone to lengths to accommodate your request and do what they can, and I know Mr. Ryan has a track record of being excellent at working with homeowners, but I do think it's a slippery slope for the city to get too far into going at expense to accommodate every homeowner who's having droppings from pine trees in their pool. So that does seem like a bit of a stretch to me to remove this tree, and I think the staff recommendation is correct and based on good expertise. So unless there's other commissioner comments, I would move to uphold the staff recommendation and deny the request to remove the trees. Oh, sorry, I have to make a motion on. And seconded by Commissioner Ashendorf. Thank you. Could we call the question?
So there's no comments?
Oh, no, yeah.
Do you want to speak on the motion, Commissioner Murphy?
Yep. Well, obviously it was really hard to hear Mrs. Turpin be so upset. Is there any way to just modify it for the one tree?
That's not something I would personally support, but it's up to you. If you want to make a substitute motion, you can certainly do so. It doesn't seem like there's a good reason to remove the tree other than it's just doing a lot of droppings and maybe interfering with the pool, but we don't have the evidence to know that it's interfering with the pool. And if that has to be dug up, and the question is at whose expense do we have to dig that up to uncover that evidence of whether the tree is interfering with the pool? And if the homeowner is willing to foot that expense and go through that discovery process, we can find out if the tree is causing the damage to their pool. But I think it's a stretch for the city to foot that expense to go through that discovery process, or just to remove the tree. I think is also something I have trouble with, but I'm open to other thoughts.
It sounds like Mrs. Turpin doesn't want to necessarily remove it either, so I just feel for her. It doesn't sound like she's just willy-nilly trying to remove trees. Mr. Gleb, does she?
She's an older resident, so I know she was really concerned about not being able to entertain any family members in her backyard or in her pool area. She has grandkids that she'd like to have come over and swim, but again, it's a lot of work for her. I think she might be on her own, from what I understand, so.
Is it possible to have her resubmit for just the one tree? Because if I'm reading this right, it can be replaced.
Yes.
Can she just resubmit for the one tree?
Yeah, that's a good question. Could the proposal just be adjusted for one tree?
In my opinion, just the removal of the one tree is something that the commission could recommend on their own and approve. I don't know that you would have to require her to resubmit.
And then the tree gets replaced. We replace a tree, or the resident has to pay to replace the tree? It looks like on the notes she has to agree to pay for the removal up front before it gets removed.
Correct. She would be required to pay for the removal as well as pay for we have a 3-to-1 replacement ratio in the city, which means for every tree removed, you have to plant 3 additional trees somewhere in the city. It doesn't have to be at that location, but somewhere in the city, she would be required to pay for the replacement trees.
And she knows she has to pay for 3 more trees?
We didn't talk about the 3 trees. I thought it was just the 1 tree. I think like she said, I think her neighbors talked her into doing all 3. But I'd like to make a substitute motion of just looking at the 1 tree
Yeah,
and
she's not going to want to
and
replace.
taking that into consideration, because we never talked about those other 2 trees. Except for the drain that was broken. She thinks the 2nd tree may have had something to do with the broken drain.
Okay, so there's a motion on the floor, and it's been seconded, and Commissioner Glab is making a substitute motion.
To consider removing the 1 tree next to her pool and not all 3.
I second that.
Seconded by Commissioner Murphy.
Can I just weigh in before?
Well, sure, let me just ask Ms. Fatua, on which motion should we vote? I believe we vote on the,
The second one first.
we'll vote on the substitute motion.
Yeah,
How do
but-
we clear the queue here?
I can make the manual adjustments so it would be motion by Glab, Commissioner Glab, and then seconded by Murphy, correct?
Correct.
Commissioner Murphy? Okay. One moment, I have to do some manual adjustments.
You know, while that happens, I wonder if the resident has considered a pool cover, right? I mean, pools aren't used throughout the year, you know, and you uncover it when you want to use it. So that way it's not getting filled with pine cones in the heavy storm season.
Yeah, I mean, that's an excellent point. Commissioner Vallarta, I know that there are pools. We don't have as many pine trees here as in other areas, but, there's pools in Big Bear, there's pools in other areas that have pine trees, so they must have figured out a system to keep the pine needles out of the pool. So maybe we can learn something there and apply that here.
Well, either way, it sounds like she's going to have to pay for something, right? So she may figure out it might be cheaper to pay for the pool cover than to replace 3 trees. But then at least it would be up to her.
Yeah, that's a good point. I would still encourage, my preference would be for the homeowner to explore everything they can to figure out a solution to the pine needle issue before removing a tree that doesn't have to be removed, other than for aesthetic issues on her pool.
May I weigh in, Chair?
Yeah,
I
please.
take the point that you raise around creating a precedent and the slippery slope. So I do understand that, but I also think it's important for me as a commissioner to show that I am open to each and every request as an individual request. And so I am fully committed to keeping Costa Mesa as full of trees as we can. But I don't think this is, I don't read this as just an aesthetic, a request around the aesthetics of her property. I read it as a quality of life, and I would love to have a pool in Costa Mesa and have it to swim, but to think about the maintenance, especially as an older person, of keeping that pool as, clean enough. And I take the data point around removing the 1 tree might not do it, but I'm willing to try in this case. So I guess it's a particular case for me.
Points well taken. Well, we have a motion on the floor, so if there's no other comments, I think we should call the question on the substitute motion by Commissioner Glab and Murphy.
So just to clarify, the substitute motion is to evaluate the 1 tree rather than the 3, correct?
Correct, just 1 tree. Is that correct, Commissioner Glab?
To evaluate or to let her remove?
To remove,
Yeah, to agree to let her remove the 1 tree.
to remove the 1 tree.
All right, we're going to go ahead and start vote. So if you guys can look on your screens. Motion carries 4-2.
Excellent. Okay, thank you, everybody. And that is our item of new business.
One quick, sorry, Chair, if I
Yes,
may.
go ahead, Mr. Ryan.
So we'll have to amend the costs associated, and we can provide those costs for the removal of the tree and the cost for the 3 replacement trees. In the report, it currently shows the cost for just all 3 trees. So that'll have to be amended, and then we can provide that to the applicant, and then she can set up payment with the city, and then that process will move forward.
That sounds good. Thank you, Mr. Ryan. Appreciate that update.
And Mr. Ryan, and then if she decides that it's too costly, that's up to her, right? To then not move forward with it.
Of course, of course.
Okay, great.
Awesome. So the last item on the agenda is monthly reports. First item being the park ranger report. Director Minter, do you have anything to share about the park ranger report this month?
No, but I'm available if you have any questions.
Awesome, thank you. Are there any public comments on the park ranger report? At this time, we'll open the item for public comment. Ms. Fatua, are there any public commenters on Zoom?
Chair, I see no hands raised via Zoom.
Awesome. We will close public comments. Are there any commissioner comments or questions on the park ranger report this month? Seeing none, we will move to receive and file that report. Thank you, Director Minter and team. And then the monthly director's report. We're excited for this one. Thank you, Jason. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. I will try to touch on some of the questions that were raised earlier during commission comments. The T. Winkle ball fields, it is a project that we're working on. Rob and his team and our staff have met out on the field and are exploring a couple different quotes that we can get from vendors to try to get that project accomplished. It is definitely a safety thing that we, feel is important and are looking at solutions to that. Shoot, I'm a little bit out of sorts. I know the master plan update. We'll start with the Fairview Park master plan. The original document was approved back in 1998. Subsequently, it had been amended on a couple of occasions. I think the most recent being in 2008. So I think everyone, both on the committee and the council would agree that it's overdue. I know when I first joined the city, it was one of those things that we were trying to get to. Unfortunately, we weren't able to accomplish that task under Cynthia's term. Just kind of an FYI, our former Fairview Park administrator, Cynthia DiAugusta, has now been selected as one of our Fairview Park Steering Committee members. So it's great to have her knowledge and experience from the other side of the dais. But the master plan update for that, it was released in August. There was a mandatory pre-proposal meeting. We had 3 different proposals came in. I cannot speak to the proposals at this time because we're still under evaluation and negotiation. We do hope to have a selection made and a report to the city council either in late November or perhaps early December with kickoff meetings just between staff and the consultant in early January. So it's an exciting process. We estimate at this point somewhere between 14, 16 months, most likely. The commission will have a chance to, host some community discussion, at least as it was currently represented in the RFP, or the scope of the RFP. So it will be something that we do have a chance to engage the community through this body. So we're excited about that. The master plan update, we did go back and forth with the clerk's office. I did want to put it on the agenda as an item that was removed. It didn't show up that way per the city clerk's recommendation, but it was not an attempt to mislead or the item that we brought forward or that I brought forward last month was really maybe a little premature in thinking that it was going to be ready in its draft form to share with the community and share with the commission. So we did have quite a bit of work to do. There was more sections that needed to get updated than I was originally aware. And it's not content in terms of what the public weighed in on. It's just there's budget numbers that need to be updated. There's projects that have been completed since the last draft of the master plan was updated. The consultant did a really good job of kind of identifying different areas of the draft report that had been updated since 2018. So that was clear, but there were additional areas that still needed updates. So I'm not happy that we weren't able to bring it forward, but I do pride myself on making sure that we have a complete report and an accurate report to share with the public and with you as commissioners. So I do apologize. I know I was excited. I'm sure you were all excited. I could tell by the emails I was getting. We have a little bit more time. I know in the email that I had sent to the commissioners, I had referenced potentially having a special meeting. I really don't think we're going to be where we need to be to get you the review time that you need. And the fact that we're dark in November, it might set itself up to where the next meeting in December is the ideal time to do it, but I can't even guarantee at this point because it is something that we as internal staff, including the city manager, need to feel comfortable with before presenting it to the public. So if there are questions on that, I'm happy to go into it in a little bit more detail, but unfortunately there's probably not too much more to share at this time. Art Venture, I want to talk about Art Venture. Thank you for bringing that up. What a great event. It was the first time that I'd actually gotten to go to my first Art Venture. It was the first time for Monique. It was the first time for Lorette, our new art specialist, to be an in-person Art Venture. The only one that we had from previous years was Ashley, and she did a heck of a job, but kudos to Ashley, to Lorette, to Monique for everything they did to prepare for Art Venture. I thought the collection of art, the different pieces, the youth art display was fantastic. And art has not necessarily been my specialty, but I'm definitely finding that appreciation for a lot of these events. One of the cities that I came from had its own art museum without a permanent collection, but it did have a rotating collection. So there are a lot of things that I've had experience with, but it's hard not to be in the City of the Arts and start taking that on. And making that become a part of my arts personality. So I think Lorette's embraced that, we did the ACMA opening the other day, and Lorette and I did walk the entire museum. I wanted to walk it with her and see her perspective. But going back to Art Venture, I thought it was a fantastic event. The team that we have in parks is pretty fantastic, and it's one of those things I kind of equate it to like a surgery or dare I say even like a delivery room type of a thing. Is everything's kind of quiet, and all of a sudden right before the event's getting ready to happen, people show up out of nowhere. And that's what I think our team does. Like everybody rallied together. It didn't matter what program you work for. There were people there to help collect, to bring in the art, to relocate the art, to hang the art. It was just such a fantastic experience to see how, so many staff members in our department, teamed up to make that such a great event. The performances, for those of you that weren't able to attend, there was just some wonderful, talented, high school folks that were dancing and playing jazz, but like pop cover jazz. And it was such an exciting time. And the awards and the juried show and all that was fantastic. So if you haven't gone or didn't get a chance to go, please make sure you put Art Venture on your calendars for next year. It is just an amazing event, and it will continue to grow and to morph. And I don't know if the location is one that we'll be at in future years, but it is going to be an event that we try to carry on and again, enhance as we move forward. But that was a lot of fun. I did have a chance to go by the Senior Center for the opening of the Bonnie Matthews display. So if you haven't done that, definitely check it out. It's such a fun and whimsical collection, and it's rather small, but you can see Bonnie Matthews' work at other locations. There was a utility box that some car decided to run into, so we're trying to get that one replaced. She has another one that's going to be opening up soon. And for those of you that may know, she was responsible for the art for Stella the Whale, which was a pretty large environmental campaign that had taken place, I think, last year. So that was really fun to do as well. A lot of the program stuff I will obviously leave for Monique. So we'll get to that in a second. The capital projects, we'll definitely touch on those. Musical instruments, if you haven't been over to the Donald Dungan Library, it's a really fun thing. We were over there, and Rob and I played with some music with some kids today, so that was kind of fun. The one little girl looked at me like I was strange, but she was amazed by the musical talent. The Norma Herzog patio, we're happy to report, is now open. All we need is some rentals, so staff did a good job of getting word out and are really trying to push that program, but we are still waiting to rent it, but it is available as of October 1st. It was available for booking, so we're very excited to have the patio complete. It's concrete now, whereas it was DG before. There's a bench with some additional lighting and then some overhead lighting that really makes it great, gives the patio a great ambiance for events that take place there. Thank you to Rob and his team for the playground equipment projects. I know we've talked about recently at Tanager and Jordan Park. One of the next ones that's been talked about at commission is Brentwood Park. So we're having staging meetings to get the community involved in Brentwood Park. I mentioned the Fairview Park Master Plan that's there. I mentioned that. And I would like to finish on our outgoing commissioner. Since I started, she has been a consummate pro in terms of what it means to be a commissioner. She does her research, she's prepared for all the meetings, she asks very deliberate and pointed questions, and you can tell she really cares about everything that she asks about. So every experience that I've had with her, I do look forward to each one. She is, like I said, a consummate pro when it comes to being a commissioner, and as a staff member, I know how valuable commissioners are. I'm not asking anyone to try to emulate her because it's the diversity of our commissioners that really makes the commission strong. But I couldn't ask for a better commissioner, and I look forward to serving with her or to working with her on the Arts Commission because it's always been a treat. And we have our little inside jokes that we share back and forth, like the one you can't repeat, right? But it's just been a pleasure, for the almost 2.5 years since I've been here, and I can't wait to see what's in store for us next. When we talk about Arts Commission and Parks Commission, that there really is an overlap there, and we are working on some arts and parks programs that might require both commissions to work together on projects. So, she's definitely not gone. She'll be around, and I'll make sure that she stays connected. And then I will leave you with the Scarecrow Fest. If there's any other members that do want to serve as judges for the Scarecrow contest, make sure that you let staff know, and because that is just 2 days away. And with that, I'll turn it over to Monique.
I'd just like to echo Director Minter's sentiments towards Commissioner Ashendorf. It's been a privilege working with you on our Parks Commission. I look forward to working with you more on arts-related matters. I will miss you taking away some of my thunder during my report. I mean, you pretty much cover a lot of the stuff that I'm going to say, but I will keep it short. The arts will continue, as Director Minter said, there's going to be overlap, so we will still on occasion update you on some arts stuff, but we are looking forward to the Arts Commission starting next month. The Senior Center, I want to highlight that they brought back their health fair, the expo, which was really nice. Staff had planned it to a T. It was going to be bigger and better than ever in 2020, and then the pandemic hit and the Senior Center shut down. The Senior Center was one of the last facilities to open up to the public. So this was a really great resource, and I was there for the expo, and you could just see how happy the seniors were to have these resources that they need, and they look forward to talking with the vendors and getting all the information that they had in person. So that was really neat to see. And our camps, our programs, they're all continued to thrive. They fill up. So we are busy. Scarecrow Fest is this weekend. The next weekend is Barktoberfest at T. Winkle Park, so please come on out to that. That is a pet event, but it is an event for everybody. Regardless of whether you have a pet or not, we really want you to come out and see what kind of event we have. Adoption services, partners, all kinds of things. The weekend after that, we are partnering with the Power of One Foundation to have a trunk or treat station at the IKEA parking lot. So this month is full, and we look forward to seeing you at all of our events this month. And then next month, you will start to see some Snoopy houses on the front lawn here. So we go full force into the holidays. But I'm here for any questions if you have any.
And then one more thing, there was a flyer on your desks in front of you. There is a bridge dedication from OCME, so they're very happy to have their trestle repaired. So if you can come on October 25th, I know 10 o'clock is tough on a Tuesday for those of you that aren't working here for the city, but you're definitely welcome to join us. I know OCME would be happy to have you. I thought Hank might be on the call to talk about it, but perhaps he isn't. But if you all know Hank Castignetti, he is one of the liaisons to OCME and is a part of the liaisonship for the Fairview Park Steering Committee. So that's all our report. If you have any questions, we're here to answer.
Exciting stuff. Thank you, Director Minter, Monique, and team. Appreciate it. Commissioner questions?
Just one comment for you, Ms. Villasenor. The youth program, the one-day camp, that's new this year? Is that correct?
The one-day camps, they started this
Right.
last year.
In conjunction with the Newport Mesa Unified School District.
Yeah, so the non-student days, technically, I think those are where the teachers are still on staff and they're still working, but the kids have off, and they're usually a couple, maybe 2, 3
Okay.
throughout the year. We found that, parents are still looking for something for their kids to do and care for their children, so we developed these one-day camps to accommodate those.
Perfect. It looks like for this first go-round, it's low, but I assume that once the ball gets rolling, those spots will fill up.
Yes, and just to touch on that, look out for our second edition of the Spotlight coming out at the end of this month, which will advertise all those camps and
Great.
programs again too for registration dates.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Ashendorf. Commissioner Brown?
I have a very particular question that relates to my family and the families who play soccer with my daughter. The lights at Harper Park, do you know, is there a way to get the lights on the playing fields turned on a bit earlier these days, or actually just turned on at all? I'm thinking there's a lot of kids out there playing soccer, practicing, and we're ending practices early these days just because it's too dark at by 6:30, 6:45. I probably should have raised that earlier, but it actually, I suppose, relates to fields, so I'd be curious to know. Thank you.
We can look into it or have staff check on the times with which each park happens.
Great comments, thank you. Awesome, seeing no more commissioner comments, Commissioner Murphy, go ahead, the floor is yours.
So just on the Newport Mesa one days, how are you advertising those?
So we do them through social media, through our Spotlight, the recreation brochure and flyers that we put out to, our general facilities. And then we also use, I believe it's called Peach Jar.
Okay, so you have been sending it out through Newport
Yes.
Mesa. Okay, great.
Great point, Commissioner
Green
Murphy.
peach tree is what it is. Peach tree. It's what it
Thought it was
goes.
peach
Everything
tree.
goes out on peach tree. So if it's not on there, no one will see it. Thanks.
I have nothing to add, just wanted to echo my thanks and appreciation for the team. I do have
I did think of one more thing that I just wanted to share, because I think, the way that the commission has shown engagement between the district and the schools in the city of, I was able to go to the State of the Schools that was hosted at Newport Harbor High School on Tuesday morning. What a wonderful event. Dr. Smith is charming. He's a fantastic guy. It's great to have him in our district. But the students that participated from the ASBs and were helping, there was cheerleaders there. They were serving food. They were just so engaged with the process. They did a little cooking demonstration. They had a choir that sang. And, for each of the superintendents that presented on their different areas of expertise, it was great to see all the enrichment activities that are happening. And we do, as a staff, want to continue to do what we can to partner with the district and other organizations as well for those opportunities. But it was a really fun event. For those of you that haven't had a chance to go, I know the room was packed, but a wonderful breakfast. My only complaint is it was at 7 a.m. But it was still a wonderful event, and that definitely woke you up with all the energy and the positivity that was in the room. So thank you to the district for hosting that. And I hadn't been a part of one of those, so it was great to see that the district does that and gets all the community partners involved. So thank you.
Awesome. Well, I know we're all ready to get home tonight. Just a quick comment though, everybody stick around. We are going to send Commissioner Ashendorf off with a lovely team photo, maybe some silly faces, so please stick around. Director Minter, I just wanted to comment, and I don't want this to come as an affront, but just to be viewed as collaborative feedback. I know a lot of us are excited about the open space master plan, not just because what it means for the city and since the time it's been updated, but also a lot of resources have gone into the master plan, almost the balance of the production period over $250,000. So that's a significant investment in a document. So I don't want it to seem like we're okay with just kicking the can down the road. I do think there's a significant interest in us doing the public justice and moving that forward. in a timely manner, or at least providing specific updates on such a large and important project. So I do appreciate your attention to that, and I look forward to us receiving more detailed updates in the future. So with that, I think that's it. If there's any other staff comments or commissioner comments, and then we will adjourn our meeting.
Just one quick thing, if, I don't know if there's an opportunity for, I don't know if the appropriate place would be in your director's report to hear what's going on the improvements for the west side. Whatever park is up for improvements and all the added development that was previously discussed in the CIP or anything of the sort. Be awesome. Thank
We
you.
can add that to a future report.
That's a good idea, Commissioner. Thank you. Awesome. So that brings us to the end of our meeting. Thank you, everybody. I don't see any other comments. So we will adjourn this meeting at 7:15 p.m. until our next regularly scheduled meeting on Thursday, December 8th, 2022.